Okay, well, so let's continue with that. If he would be just taking back the pawn with the pawn, e takes d5. Knight b d5, queen takes b7 was the previous line which we studied. Let's see, e takes d5, which is actually a bit more logical because his pawn structure is very, very good with the d5, e5 pawns. a3 and e4. So we just chase away his knight, and he also tries to find counterplay, because if he would leave the b4 square with the knight, we would take the d5. So find these intermediate moves in practical game like e4 is also not really easy for the opponents. So knight e5, we just jump forward, and knight d3. Yes, because what else can he do? He can't continue to keep attacking us, because yeah, it's just makes some problems for him. For example, if queen d6 keeping attack our knight, then we have a takes b4, queen takes e5, and I think we take on d5. Yes, win back one pawn, but then we have also a little bit more activity than for him. So this is completely fine and acceptable way here. Okay. Let's see how about knight d3. Knight takes d3, e takes d3, and the rook takes d3. So actually we get back a pawn, but still his d5 is weak, and the a7 is also hanging. However, he can also take a pawn with bishop takes a3. Rook a1, because it was actually a tempo, so we are coming there. Bishop d6, rook takes a7, so we also take back that. And simply queen e8, because yeah, he would like to simplify the position, as we are threatening to win back immediately two pawns, the b7 and the d5 also, and we can see that he can't keep them at all, so he tries to equalizing the position with queen e8, but I think white chances are a little bit better here, because at least we play rook takes b7, queen takes e8 happened in the game, which is also acceptable, but after rook b7, the d5 will be weak, so in the long term I will win that, so only white can play for win. Nice, excellent. So let's go back. How about the a6? If he doesn't play knight takes b4 and go in these sharp things, how about a6? Yeah, it's actually a nice solid play. He wanted to avoid the real b5, but yeah, we can play still that excellent move. A takes b5, queen takes b5, queen d7, because the b7 was hanging, so he should do something here. So queen d7, knight a4 exclamation mark. Also we immediately have to be ready to find the opponent position's weaknesses. Knight d4. Yes, because knight b6 and knight c5 are two strong threats, so he should find something counterplay instead of blocking that. So for example, if he would play like bishop d8, also doesn't really help because I jump to c5 and we will take on b7. So for example, queen e7, knight takes b7, and he's hanging on c6 and on d6 also. So our position is just excellent. Okay, so how about knight d4? We can play knight takes d4 here, take that, e takes d4, queen takes d7, bishop d7, so suddenly we are in an endgame, but it's more promising for white, because the d4, on d4 I have a very active bishop, his pawns are a little bit weaker, e4 is a bit more advanced than his pawns, and okay, I will also come back with the knight soon, so I think it's a completely normal play. His bishop also can't really move, because then he will lose the d6 pawn soon. Great! Bishop takes d4, very good play. Excellent. Okay, let's go back, and let's see how about the a6 immediately, instead of this bishop e6. Rook ac1. So come with the rook here, and bishop d7. How about bishop e6 instead? If bishop e6, then we also do the same dark squared strategy, knight a4, and the knight is going towards b6 and create threats on the weak squares. Of course, the fork is not working because of this this rook attack. So bishop takes e6, f takes, and the c6 is also hanging. So maybe first knight b6, and white is winning here. So with knight d7, it is more solid to control those squares. However, this this knight move is not allowing to play queen d7 for him. So we always have to be ready for the changing. Bishop takes e6 now, f takes e6, and queen c4. And suddenly the e6 is weak. He can't protect with queen d7 as the usual reply. Rook f6 he has to do, but of course still this is also not easy. We continue the attack with knight g5. The point is that he can't come with this fork because his knight is also hanging on c6, so this is simply not working at all. How about knight f8? Let's see. And then we just come back from the b5 with queen b3, and also creates some attack against the b7 pawn. He also can't push yet, and maybe I will jump to b6 in a good moment. Moreover, sometimes even knight c5 will be also a good option. Okay, so we have clearly a really good initiative here. Okay, let's see how about if he would play h6. h6 is just, instead of the bishop e6, just a normal waiting move. Now with knight a4 we can't come, because maybe we can, because of b5. Yeah, it's kind of kind of hard here. Maybe rook b8. Yeah, it's not so clear why so good. So let's come with b4. b4 is a really interesting move. We already also experienced it several times when white goes forward on the queen side and try to create some pressure there. For example, now also knight takes b4 is dubious or bad, because after knight takes e5, white has an awesome position, because threatening with even knight g6 also sometimes. Thanks for this pin. Knight takes f7 is also okay. Takes everything, and queen c4. And of course this pin is saving the knight as well. His knight on b4 is a bit out of play. So let's see bishop e6. and a4. Yeah, black also doesn't want any special, just play normally. Bishop takes c4, queen takes c4, and rook c8. Queen b3. A little bit we went out of the c file, so now we are maybe ready to play b5. But at this moment we just go the force moves, and then we will see kind of plans. So for example, if rook e8, then we can come with queen b1. This is a strange move, a weird move at first, but it's not an useless thing to protect the e4 pawn even with the queen also. Because, for example, if he plays with bishop f8, then we can come with b5 already. A takes b5, a takes b5, knight e7. Yes, and also we went out of the knight a5, because if he would play b5 immediately, I think he can, maybe if it doesn't take, just knight a5 immediately, and if now we go back to b1, he can continue with knight c4, and he has a great activity here. Okay, so this was the reason why queen b1 is a nice prophylactic continuation. It's a very nice prophylactic play. And if the opponent is continue with bishop f8, then we can come with b5, a takes b5, a takes b5, knight e7, and then b6. We say we have again a good compensation, but why? The pawn is strong on b6. Moreover, we can have a nice maneuver, because the c7 square we can't roll with this move. So his situation is simply not easy. Not easy. Compensation, that is the most correct evaluation. So let's go back. This was the h6. How about, for example, bishop d7 instead? Then we jump with knight d5 into the center. Knight takes d5. Bishop takes d5. Rook c8. a3. a3 we also experienced already several times. First of all, we would like to come with b4 and some advance on the queen side like before, and also freeze the a2 square for the bishop, and also we prevented the knight b4. So h6, also useful move. We go forward with b4, queen e8, and after queen d3, white has a great compensation. Yes, because what can we say as a normal plan? Knight d2, knight c4. We just go forward, and on b6, very interesting knight maneuver, and he can't come with the f5 plan because he's pinned. Okay, after a king move, that is an option, but it's also losing more tempo, so it's not the most promising thing for him. Okay, alright, so this was the 8th bishop e7 variation. Let's see how about bishop d7. Here we also continue with rook d1. Now bishop e7 would be transposing to the previous variation when we played bishop g5. But now black comes with queen b8. But why b8 instead of queen c7? Because on c7 many times he will be on the knight b5 tempo. So this is just worse for him. That's why on b8 we are not threatening this with tempo. However, his rook can't come out from the development. Bishop f4, this we already saw also several times, and knight h5. Yes, he would like to attack our knight, our bishop with the knight. How about knight e5 instead? Knight e5 is a bit dubious, because now we can come with bishop b5. To exchange those squares, bishop is good. Moreover, his king is in the middle. That is the main point actually. a6. knight takes e5, good intermediate move, d takes e5, bishop takes d7, knight takes d7, bishop e3. Just come back here, b5, and after rook a c1, we can say that our position is a bit more advanced, more promising, because okay, still black has a pawn now, but double pawns on the e-file, and we are more active. Let's see a few moves yet. For example, if bishop e7, then how would we continue the play? Let's play, for example, a4, b4, and the knight is jumping to b1. He can't play castle, so he has to move maybe with the knight somewhere. And then I start to activate my knight d2, castle, knight c4, and the knight will arrive b6 in time and create a good pressure. So objectively white is already slightly better here. Knight a5, knight c6 can be also a strong maneuver. So we have several nice plays here. For example, if knight takes e4, that is not working because of knight b6, rook a7 and knight d7, and we win an exchange here. Okay, so how about knight h5? Let's see. Knight e5 was a little bit slow. Bishop e3, knight f6. He would be already happy for the repetition, but of course we don't want. How about bishop e7 instead? Bishop e7, it says dubious, because now we will have also brilliant play, like e5. We also met several times with this. Of course the knight can't take, because he will be hanging on h5 then, and he lost the piece. But how about if d takes e5? Because this seems to be just okay. But now coming surprise for him, the rook takes d7, double exclamation mark. This is really good, because if king takes d7, then we have knight g5. First of all, his king is in the middle. Materially he is better because exchange and 2 pawns up he has, but his king is the main problem, and also a little bit the h5 knight. Let's see what can he do then. g6, and knight takes f7. Okay, rook f8, queen g4. No problem. The knight is hanging there because we create some kind of counterplay now against the e6. So for example, if he would play like rook f7, then queen takes e6 and we win back the rook immediately. So that is not working for him at all. Knight g7, he has to protect the e6, but here he also faces with several problems. For example, bishop takes e6, alright, knight takes e6, and then rook d1, and after rook d1, white is winning already. Because, for example, if the king moves somewhere, we will take the knight on e6. Maybe first of all we give a check, takes queen e6 now, bishop blocks, and knight is jumping to e4, and we just go forward here. Okay, excellent. So let's go back. This was the really nice rook takes d7 stuff. How about if he tried to close the center with d5? Still, usually this is the best chance for him. bishop b5. Now the sacrifice was not correct, so we should keep the tension. And g6. Yes, because now the knight is trapped. So for example, if you would play castle, then we have g4 and the knight can't move anywhere. So that's why g6, because he frees the g7 square for the knight. Bishop h6, we immediately use out that he has problems on the dark squares, so it's a really nice play here. Rook g8. And let's continue the play. g4. Knight g7 and bishop a4. But why we play bishop a4? Because first of all we freeze the b5 square for the knight, and in a good moment it will be important. Moreover, we can activate the bishop here, and maybe in a good moment we will sacrifice the bishop or the knight on d5 something and crushing him in the center. So for example a6, rook a c1 and b5. Bishop b3 and queen b6. And now it is time to attack. How? Bishop takes d5 exclamation mark. So finally this arrived, because black position is so pushed. We don't really have any special continuation, any other special continuation, and this is completely good for us because we arrive by tempo. So he takes d5, knight d5, queen b8. Bishop takes g7, because his knight is already ready to jump to e6 and he protects himself. So for example, if knight check on f6, then he can take it. F takes, d takes, I mean, and knight, e takes f6, and knight jump to e6, and black is okay. He just protected himself as well. So that's why bishop takes g7 first is very important. Rook takes g7, and only now knight f6 check, and this is now winning, because if he takes, then this cover check, but we win the rook in the next move, or even if he goes with the king somewhere, we will take the bishop, moreover we will win his queen or give checkmate. So this position is completely hopeless for him. Okay, let's go back. This was the bishop e7, e5 stuff. How about if he would continue with d5 right now? No, sorry, the bishop d5, this was that variation. So instead of bishop e7, let's see how about the knight f6. Rook a c1. If we don't have any special break, then we just continue the natural play. Bishop e7, bishop f4, e5, and bishop e3. Now we provoked the e5. Usually we don't do this, but now we can play on the d5 square and we don't really have any other play, so that's why this bishop f4 was important. However, the normal h3 I think is also okay, because if castle, then we also have kind of compensation, maybe play something like a3 as b4 and play for b4, or bishop a2. It's also completely playable position. But let's say bishop f4, provoke e5, come back to e3, castle, and after a3, again a very good compensation for the material. Okay, alright, so this was the bishop d7 variation. Let's see how about the a6. Probably this is the main, most typical, most stronger, most powerful continuation. Rook d1, but of course we also continue our plan. Queen c7. How about if the queen would go to a5 instead? Usually it's not really good to come out with the queen to a5, but now this is something similar because we were threatening with e5 already, so he should do something. Bishop f4, yeah, the same plan like before. And knight e5. Because he would like to block, he doesn't want to play e5 now, because after e5 also weaken the d5 square, so we play bishop g5, and yeah, and that is completely good. Okay, fighting for that. How about knight e5? Knight takes e5, d takes e5. Very common we reach this structure. So this is not a surprise already. And bishop d2. This motif we also had already in this course, because now also the x-ray threat, so the knight is ready to jump somewhere. Bishop d7. How about queen c7 instead? Rook a c1, threatening to do something on the c file, and bishop d7. How about bishop e7 instead? Okay, let's continue the strong play here. Knight b5 exclamation mark. And queen b8. If a takes b5, there is the same story. Bishop takes b5, and white wins the black queen. So that is not really good for him. Queen b8, but now we have also the same story, knight c7 check. This motif we already experienced before. So let's see how about bishop d7. Bishop takes a6. This we also saw already, this kind of motif. And for example, if he would play something like b takes a6, yeah, that is the main. If rook takes a6, then knight b5, bishop takes b5, queen takes b5. Yeah, because if the queen leaves somewhere, then we would play knight c7 check, so that's not working. And if queen d7, then we have rook c8 check, and winning because king e7 and bishop b4 and checkmate soon. So thanks for this pin, this is working as well. So let's see after rook c6 how can we beat the opponent. Let's play bishop a5 exclamation mark, and now we play another good move. There is no rook takes c1 fortunately for the back rank because he is pinned, and yeah, and it's hopeless because if the queen goes somewhere here, we can maybe take on c6, pawn takes back, and the strongest way is rook d8 check, queen takes c6, knight d7. Yes, and we just take the queen, and with the two pawns we are winning here. Or if queen d7, then queen a8 check, king e7, and after bishop b4 his position is completely hopeless. Okay, very good. Let's see how about if he would play b takes a6 right now. Then knight d5. So again we jump here, and knight takes d5. Yes, he has to sacrifice the queen, because if the queen moves somewhere, it's not only the exchange is the important, the following attack is even more dangerous for him. He has several more problems with that. So, like for example, the king has to move, yes, where to move, then even we have bishop a5 also, so it's just not good for him. Okay, let's see how about knight takes d5, rook takes c7, knight takes c7. Okay, materially also not completely bad this for him, because he has rook and two pieces for the queen, which is generally not bad at all. But after queen h5 I can continue with a strong attack, because still he is completely undeveloped. I attack the e5 pawn. He can't protect with bishop with g6 because of the pin, and if bishop d6, then we have bishop a5, bishop c3. He is simply in a big trouble. Okay, alright. So, let's go back a little bit and let's see how can we continue here. So instead of queen c7, if he plays bishop d7, because on c7, okay, he went out of the bishop's diagonal, but it was involving another problems with rook a c1, so that was also not successful for him. Rook a c1, queen d8. Yes, now he went out. That's why he played the bishop d7, because the bishop is covering the queen right now. But okay, it's also not finished. Bishop e3, rook c8, and knight a4. This knight a4 we already met several times. We would like to jump to b6, because usually after bishop e3, this is also a typical maneuver when black played the a6. Okay, still he can play rook c6, but then bishop b3, and white has a good play also for the pawn, because now we are exchanging the rooks and knight will go to b6 soon. Okay, let's go to the main line. Let's see how to play this with white. Bishop f4. We again come here. And bishop e7. How about e5 instead, which we already experienced several times? But now we have even a new move here, even another continuation instead, which is not else than knight d5. We just jump here, and what can he do now? The queen can't really escape because the knight is staying on d5. Knight takes d5, e takes d5, and yeah, and the knight is hanging. Our bishop is not hanging because suddenly pinned, and if he moves with kind of knight e7, we can already ready for the crushing move with knight takes e5. So this is a really big problem for him. D takes and d6, and his position is completely hopeless. How about knight e5 instead of e5? Here we should also punish the opponent with white. How can we do that? What is the best move? Bishop b5 check, brilliant continuation. And bishop d7. Because in case of a takes b5, knight takes e5, excellent play. D takes e5, And knight takes b5. And now we also continue our attack. Queen a5, bishop d2, bishop b4. Yes, we are keeping attack him, but now we just take it at knight c7 and we won his rook without any problem. How about bishop d7? If bishop d7, then we can take it. Knight f takes d7, and after rook a c1 he's also in trouble because we are threatening on the c file. So this is also excellent position for white. Very good. Let's see the next one. How about knight d7 instead of knight e5? Knight e5, bishop b5 was simply a brilliant way. So knight d7. Okay, if we don't have a concrete break, then we can play kind of rook a c1, queen b8, and also, which we already experienced several times, b4, bishop e7, b5. Also he couldn't take it, yes, because if he could, then we will have something attack queen d2, and on d6 he has some problems. There is no knight jump on e5. So bishop e7, b5. Excellent move. We continue the attack, perfect. And knight ce5. And let's see how can we play a good move here. Knight takes e5, d takes e5. Yeah, if you would take the knight is also not better. Bishop e3, castle, and look this position after b6. We completely pushed him. He almost no move at all. A very, very bad position. White is clearly better already here. Awesome. Let's see how about bishop e7. This is the final main line. Rook a c1, we also come with that. And short castle. How about knight d7 instead? Knight d7 is bad again. Usually for this maneuver he doesn't have enough time. He would like to jump to e5 and block this bishop's diagonal, but the typical and brilliant knight d5 just arrives here, and if e takes d5, he is in a trouble again. Let's see why. For example, knight a7. If knight ce1, e5, we can also continue with a very good continuation here, very strong attack by knight takes e5, d takes e5. If knight takes, then again bishop b5 check and we win the queen with this discover threat. And in case of d takes e5, we have d6. Bishop takes d6 and bishop takes f7. So now I opened this diagonal for the bishop because on b5 I couldn't go, and it's also winning. How about knight a5? If knight a5, then rook e1. Black is a clear piece up, but he can't keep castle, because if he would protect with the knight f6 the bishop, also bishop b5 check, or queen d8 also met by bishop takes d6, and his position is hopeless. So castle, queen takes e7, knight takes c4, and after b3 he is in a pin, and white wins back the piece, and with a much better version we just win the material. Excellent, this is also winning as well, and let's see the next move. The knight a7. Let's see what to do here. Rook e1, also attack, that's similar like knight a5, knight b8, and also with bishop b5, we want to win the queen. Okay, still he can just block. It was a tricky way for him also, because if I take, he also take my bishop, but I can go back to a4, and I keep my bishop and will win back his knight, and with a much better version, I win back the piece. Okay, so let's see, castle 97 was too slow. Bishop b3, this is also typical when the queen is on c7, rooks are coming to d1, c1, bishop goes back to b3, and also threatening with knight d5. So for example, if he would play the rook d8, then we have knight d5, and after this we just crush him like ed5, bishop g4, d takes c6, b takes h3, and also white is more comfortable even with the pawn down also, because the black pawns are weak, especially the c6 is the most attackable. So that's why queen b8, still he goes out of the pin, but in every move we go forward and he goes back, so it's not a really good business for him. e5, same point. If d takes, then knight takes, and we are very good. And in case of knight h5, we play bishop g5, d takes e5, bishop g5, knight takes g5 is also hopeless for him, because on h7 he has problems, and take back the pawn with a brilliant d6 pawn. So d takes e5, bishop takes e7, knight e7, and knight takes e5. Knight f6, and after knight a4, we have a really good compensation here. So, in summary, if you would like a good, strong, and relatively quick repertoire against the Sicilian, the Smith Morra can be a very nice weapon for it.